Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, Supply Chain Insights, the podcast for your supply chain leader who is on the go and wants to be in the know. And now, your host, Laura Ciceri.
This is Laura Ciceri. I'm the founder of Supply Chain Insights, and this is the lead up to the Supply Chain Insights Global Summit and the Digital Showcase. For the preparation for the event, we ask all the technologists that are coming to the event to give their insights into Supply Chain 2030, which is one of the main themes of the event. And today I'm talking to Alex, and Alex, you're with John Galt. So tell the group a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you, Laura, for having me. A little bit about myself. I actually started my career in marketing and quickly found my way to supply chain and kind of really fell in love with the space and been there ever since. Since then, I've been really fortunate in my career to work across different roles in the supply chain planning space, first as a practitioner, then as a supply chain planning technology researcher, and now I lead global product strategy at John Galt Solutions. And I think, while my career path has taken me across different roles, there's always been three areas that have always been present. I like to build, tinker, and solve problems, the opportunity to continuously learn, and of course, the focus on technology. A little bit about John Galt Solutions. The company was founded in 1996. It's a global supply chain planning software provider. And I like to think of it at the intersection of pragmatism and the art of the possible. And what I mean by that is that our big focus is on solving today's real world problems with an eye towards the future and really enabling companies to accelerate their digital transformation. So they're addressing those mission critical operational challenges, but also be ready for the future. Companies around the world have turned to us to support their supply chain planning initiatives, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to work very closely with them, Laura. Personally, it's been a fantastic journey to be a part of the team, to help build the product, and quite honestly, hear customer stories of how John Galt Solutions has helped them evolve, and accelerate wherever they may be in their transformation journey, especially, nowadays with such an unpredictable environment.
So, Alex, if we were talking 5 years ago, we would never have thought about the level of demand and supply variability we're seeing now. What do you think Supply Chain 2030 looks like? That's a major theme at the conference.
Yeah, to your point, Laura, right? I think a lot of companies are being reshaped and reimagined as they operate in that environment that has a lot more variability, a lot more uncertainty. And I think decisions have to be made a lot faster. I would almost argue that technology, to a certain degree, is a lot more advanced than processes. And what I think as we think about 2030 is that supply chains need to fundamentally shift away from a very traditional way of thinking, using very traditional, very rigid tools, so they can support that flexibility to support a lot of that uncertainty and that volatility. As we head into 2030, it's not too far away. It's really, about 7 years or so, right? I think, I would boil it down to three main areas, and it was a bit of a tough one just thinking about, there's a lot of different ways that we can go here. But I think, first of all, we're going to see a lot more data and a focus on automation. And what I mean by that is, we know data is everywhere. It's the heartbeat of the modern supply chain. And definitely it's going to be even more so in 2030. Today, a lot of supply chains, they have a lot of layers. They move very quickly, highly interconnected, and they require informed decisions to be made as close to in real time and optimized across supply chain. And I think where we're moving is this world of, networks of networks, a hyper-connected world. Information is coming from everywhere, all directions, multiple systems, communicating with each other. And we have to gain a more useful picture, a finer level of detail to really support these decisions and operations. So kind of where I go with point number one is there's a lot of data. We're going to be seeing a lot more data in terms of volume, variety coming in a lot quicker. But also we need to automate a lot of this information that's coming in and a drive towards those outside-in processes based on a lot of this data. And the shift to an outside-in approach, I think, is starting to happen. And one of the concepts here at John Galt Solutions we're focused on is continuously bringing in a lot of that market data, always sensing, bringing in any data source and system, and then translating that into supply and demand strategies. So that's my first point, Laura, which brings me to my second point, which is a fusion of the digital and the physical world. And let me take a minute or two to kind of expand a bit on this point. Over the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of challenges that the supply chain leaders are having to battle and think about. And what this means is that they're really having to think about their supply chain network, examine and understand what is happening, what is in their control, what is out of their control, and what, frankly, they should be in control of. And so as they're looking at the entire network, it's not just the traditional first and secondary tiers, but really looking at that multi-enterprise network and how to enable that end-to-end aligned decision-making and gain complete visibility, kind of the holy grail in supply chain, right? I want end-to-end decision-making and I want that visibility. But along with this, I think we're in the early days of the shift away from a very functional and domain way of thinking, right? Traditionally, you have plan, you have make, source and deliver type of model to start to address what does end-to-end really mean. And Laura, you've challenged the industry to stop throwing away some of these terms and put some definition. So where I go with this is that kind of the holy grail of supply chain is decision-making, visibility. So we need to fuse together the physical and those digital worlds. And, I think, for example, the use of a digital supply chain twin to enable supply chains to connect and collaborate across different systems, across, different time horizons, and even across a variety of maybe traditional and non-traditional supply chain domains is where we're going to be seeing going into 2030. And one of the ways here at John Galt Solutions that we're doing this is continuously developing advanced technology like a digital twin to gain that finer level and of detail as well as visibility into the real world. And then going into my third point, Laura, is I think we can't forget about talent. Where we're seeing a new generation of planners, and I'll call them the digital native planners, where I think not only their expectations is going to be work with technology that's advanced, but also very intuitive, very much like they're used to operating in today's world, but also, how they think about the future in terms of how they operate. So let me take a moment there and explain what I mean by that is that a lot of the future leaders of supply chain, again, 7 years from now, they're going to be used to living in a digital world. It's a generation that probably lived their whole lives using a smartphone. And certainly I don't come from that generation, right? I still remember when you had to use dial-up internet and even before that. So these planners are used to and want access to a lot of advanced technical capabilities like machine learning to be able to gain, domain knowledge in a way that's very, very easy for them. And we also know that going into the future, companies are going to want to use a variety of technologies and applications that in a way they can mix and match and assemble them in terms of how they want to support their business processes. So I think of it very much as the evolution of music. If you think about maybe 20, 30 plus years ago, you used to have vinyl records and you were very much limited to listening to that one artist, that one genre of music. And even if you wanted to listen to one song, you had to listen to the whole record. But where has that evolved to now is that you can create a playlist on the fly, right? You can mix and match different songs, different artists, different genres. And so we have choice. And I think going into the future, into 2030, these digital natives, right? They want an easy way to use technology, but they also want choice in how they're going to be assembling their business applications, as well as how to think about the process. So kind of a very long answer there, but those are the three areas that, if you ask me, where are we going with in 2030, that I think.
All right, so data, the fusion of digital and modeling, and building talent. So when people meet you at the Global Summit, let's talk about the conversation you want to have about how John Galt can help.
Sure. I think what we want to talk about, first of all, is driving business outcomes, but there's a lot of complexity. And we're hearing that from our customers is how are we able to tackle higher degrees of complexity? And I think that's something that also excites us as well, where we're seeing companies who have very large global planning models, very complex networks, and they have to, going back to the theme of visibility, how do they look at primary, secondary, tertiary flows and beyond, and all the different moving parts. You've got transfer logic, of course, you got multiple targets to deliver, to source from. You need to think about constraints. That's a big issue right now, right? There's a lot of resource constraints across distribution centers, transportation, labor, co-packers. How should they allocate? How should they push the product? So it's kind of this almost continuously morphing 3D puzzle of moving parts. And so I think that's something that we're very much looking forward to talking to customers and to companies about, you've got a lot of complexity. How can we help you start, evolve, and accelerate? And companies are at different stages of perhaps their transformation. Some are very much coming out of Excel, and some might be a lot more advanced, but I think that push towards accelerating their transformation is really important.
I agree. So Alex, I look forward to seeing you at the Global Summit. I hope everybody has that great conversation with you at the coffee pot. And until then.
Thank you so much, Laura. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And again, one of the great highlights of the year is the content and all the speakers, and very much looking forward to being there. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.